Welcome back, chooms. This video is all about the media in Cyberpunk Red. The media is a role focused on gathering, checking, spreading and exploiting information. In the dark future, there is no clear definition of what the media is or what they do, other than dealing with information and be a specialist of communication. A media could be one of the last defenders of freedom of information, engaged in a relentless struggle against MediaCorps and a fierce opponent of their propaganda, a hunter of subliminal messages and a hound of hidden truths. On the other hand, a media could very well be an employee of a MediaCorp, paid to manipulate the truth and influence public opinion, cover up scandals or alter the common perception of something. A media might also simply work as an advertiser for a corporation, challenging its rivals to come up with the most provocative holographic billboard to date. Or it could be a simple N54 anchorman, a special correspondent at the scene of a crime or a massacre, an investigative reporter determined to expose the latest scandal from the upper echelons of politics, or expose yet another megacorp abuse on his independent blog. If you are planning to play a media in Cyberpunk Red, then this video is gonna help you out, both in understanding the lore behind the media and also in explaining the game mechanics behind playing it. I will start from an overview of the media in the world of Cyberpunk, especially in the time of the Red. In this context, I will give you 4 examples of famous media in the lore of Cyberpunk that you can use as a source of inspiration or to challenge yourself to create a new media. But I will also point you to some less known sources that can help you out with developing and fleshing out your media. Finally, I'm going to give you a quick summary of how information and communication work in the world of Cyberpunk Red. In this context, I will summarize for you all you need to know about agents, the data term, the CitiNet, the data pool, the MediaCorps, and all the stuff revolving around the media, so you can play a media that is always aware of the tools at their disposal. And if you don't need the setting information or just need some of them, you can use the time skips down below in order to skip to the sections you're most interested in. And you can also use the timestamps to skip to the cruncher part of the video, where I deal with the media's rollability or when I give you some tips on which cyberware or items may be useful to you. This is gonna be a long video, so without further ado, let's jump straight into it. In cyberpunk dystopic futures, information is among the most valuable assets in circulation. Those who are able to acquire, disseminate, and possibly twist truth and information are either kept in high regard or strongly opposed, depending on the party involved. For example, a corporation might hire a solo to hunt down a media that is being too nosy and is poking around where she shouldn't be. On the other hand, the media might easily become a champion of the people after exposing a hot scoop or unveiling a plot of a corporation or a corrupt government and causing their collapse. In Night City, the media can move assets simply by manipulating and spreading news. Maybe the last general election was rigged. The media found out and now the election needs to be repeated. Or maybe that construction site in Upper Marina didn't have all the proper permits. Or maybe that combat football champion was persuaded by threats to sign for the Night City dealers. Not to mention that star accused of rape who, as it turns out, got his last part thanks to a bribe kindly offered to the director by his lover, a prominent corporate executive at Continental Brands. No wonder the fans have been booing him every match after the news got on the Screamsheet. But by now, you should have realized, a media's job can get very, very dangerous. That's why, at the time of the Red, a media needs to know how to handle themselves in combat or in a fight should things go bad. For that, he usually joins a team with diversified skills, from the solo who protects them, to the netrunner who helps them retrieve information buried in corpo databases, from the meditech who stitches them up when they get injured, to the technician who takes care of their equipment. Cyberpunk lore is full of well-known medias. Let's take a look at some of them. In Cyberpunk 2077, the video game, we meet Lyle Thompson, a WNS media who rescues Johnny Silverhand after the kidnapping of Alt Cunningham. Thompson is part of the team responsible for infiltrating the Arasaka Tower along with Johnny, Rogue and Santiago. After collaborating with them and blasting a security door with an explosive himself, Thompson later ends up badly beaten by one of his comrades when he insists on filming a tragic and painful scene with typical media stubbornness in order to get the evidence to take down the Arasaka. Thompson has been part of the lore since Cyberpunk 2013. In Cyberpunk Red, we're also introduced to other medias, some of whom are also in the video game. For example, think of Bes Isis, the former keyboard player for Samurai, Johnny Silverhand's band, third investigative journalist for News 54. In the time of the Red, Bes has her own show on the data pool and has a somewhat controversial reputation due to many laws she breaks in her investigations. In the game, we meet her 32 years later, still an employee of N54, and we may have a chance to get her out of trouble over the course of 3 missions that delve into her story and also leave us with a quote that I think it's worth reading. And how could we fail to mention Dr. Paradox? If you have made it far enough into the game, you will be familiar with his robo-voice expounding anti-corporate conspiracy theories in the loading screen. But his character was already analyzed in great detail in the official lore, in particular in the Live and Direct Splat book for Cyberpunk 2020. More on this later in the vid. Here we also have his stats. Dr. Paradox also returns in Cyberpunk Red, as the author of the popular Dr. Paradox Mysteries Screamsheet, full of often incoherent rants, conspiracy theories, postmodern poetry and intentionally revolting images intended to shake up the masses. His best known theory is that the government plans to turn everyone into zombies through the use of specialized artificial intelligences. According to Dr. Paradox, President Kress herself is an artificial intelligence that uses a flesh shell to present a more acceptable face to the people. We cannot but conclude this review with Tesla Johanneson, the famous reporter working for WNS, who in 2003 published the transcripts revealing key information for the first Central American conflict. As it turned out, the Gang of Four, as Tesla called the secret government coalition made up of the heads of 4 agencies and the executive branch led by the vice president, was secretly responsible for releasing the bioagents that caused the mysterious malady of 1991 that swept the coca plantation of the South America as part of a long-range plan to destabilize the governments of several key South and Central American countries for their own gain. Tesla was assassinated in Cairo a year later, in 2004, by NSA agents, a tragic example of the risks taken by a media in the dark future. Actually, there will be a lot of other medias to mention in the lore of Cyberpunk. You can find some of them in the Countdown to the Dark Future paragraph, in particular those from 322 to 328, to which I'll leave you the link in the description. They could be useful to deepen your knowledge of the lore or even to simply give you some inspiration or help you better understand the role of a media in Cyberpunk Red. Finally, I also recommend you to take a look at the short story Black Dog, which you can find at the end of the core book of Cyberpunk Red. There appears Trace Santiago, a nomadic media, as well as the son of the famous nomad Santiago, leader of the Aldo Caldo, and possibly, it seems, of Rogue. In Tales of the Red Plus, we also have statistics for Trace. And to be honest, after what Santiago and his friend find out at the end of the short story Black Dog, I think he deserves a spot in this list of famous media in the Cyberpunk lore. If you'd like to delve deeper into the media, maybe just because you want to roleplay your own media character better, or out of personal curiosity or for whatever other reason, the book for you is Live and Direct, a supplement for Cyberpunk 2020 entirely devoted to the role of the media. You can find it on Drive-Thru RPG, to which I leave the link in the blurb down below. The book delves into the role of the media, traces the history of the mass media from the 16th century to 2020, in the Cyberpunk timeline of course, offers templates for media characters from the paparazzi to the frontline correspondent, gives details on the 3 big MediaCorps of the 20s, Neft 54, WHO and WNS, and finally also gives you useful hints on how to build a campaign entirely based on a media character, whether it be in service of a government, freelancers or something more underground. In my opinion, it's a nice handbook with an all-good splat book flavor that gives you the vibe of the passion that the author had for the topic at that moment. And if you are playing a media, or you have a media in your party, I strongly recommend you to read this book. Since the Fourth Corporate War, people have stopped believing everything the corporation wanted them to. Many, however, are still enslaved by the ubiquitous advertisement that trespass more and more on their personal life. Too ignorant to realize, to understand the mystification of the corporation, or just so lobotomized by the constant flow of information from the data pool to recognize what is true and what is false. Yet, many things have changed compared to the past. With the collapse of the old global net, the information is now local, not international, and the World Wide Web does not exist anymore. This return to localism has been partially curbed by CitiNet, a city VPN developed by Ziggurat. After the data crash, which I have already described in the Netrunner guide, the CitiNet is what allows the media to access the data pool and publish its content independently. This means that the Screamsheets and other sources of information have, at least initially, only a local circulation, but also that the media is free to publish what they want, when they want, and likewise, those who want to inform themselves can theoretically do so freely. Data terms are physical terminals, usually placed on street corners, from which the CitiNet can be accessed. They are protected by reinforced concrete blocks and connected directly to the city's central server. From a data term, you can obtain information of various kinds: maps, news, public phone numbers, what events and services are available in the area, and of course, you can also use them to connect to the data pool. You can imagine a data term as a sort of a fusion of an internet cafe and a phone box. In Night City, they are managed by the Ziggurat, and access to them costs 10 eddies per minute, which is also very expensive in my opinion. The big news in the time of the Red is the data pool, a city land that takes the place of the old global net. Built and managed by the Ziggurat, the data pool requires an account in order for you to use it, and is tied to a fully cabled LAN network, which, although not as versatile as the old satellite one, is also more resilient to sabotage. The data pool is an open-ended database to which anyone can freely upload content that is then easily accessible by any agent or data term. Pop medias, digital entertainment or information content that can be downloaded at the click of a button is very popular on the data pool. An agent will continue to download the pop media associated with the one downloaded until interrupted, in a procedure similar to that of modern social network algorithms. Now, a media can independently upload their content on the net and make them immediately available to its fellow citizens. Those who click on the content will continue to receive it, and this will make it even easier for a media to get some fans. Bringing down those who dig in the dirt has become more difficult for corporations in the time of the Red. The media now can rely on their fans, and their reputation are safety measures, and their credibility is their best weapon. One of the most distinctive aspects of information in the world of Cyberpunk Red is the Screamsheet. The Screamsheet is a digital newspaper whose pages are rendered by a computer, transformed into code, and then uploaded to the data pool and transmitted to data terms, which can print them on paper thanks to high-speed printers. You can then only print the section you are interested in, and the cost is negligible if we disregard the cost for accessing to a data term. A tenth of a euro-dollar per page. Usually, several editions a day are published at different times, so that the news is always fresh. On page 326, you can find a table for the random generation of Screamsheet titles. I think that as part of the setting, the Screamsheets didn't really age well, because they sound so unfuturistic in a time like ours, when we can access information from our phones, and information itself and communication has since disengaged from TV and newspapers. Nevertheless, printing a Screamsheet from a data term is something with a peculiar cyberpunk flavor, and I personally dig that very much, although it didn't age well. On the top of that, Screamsheet can be very useful for you, because through them you can give your group a lot of missions, as the developers do themselves, both in the core rulebook and the DLCs. For example, in Red Chrome Cargo, a gig available as a free DLC, to which I'll leave a link in the description down below, PCs learn of a gang clash from a Screamsheet, only to be called upon by a fixer to retrieve stolen cargo from one gang to another. It's a great way to increase immersion and also foreshadow the content of missions the group might face in the future, and thus making them seem more believable. If you're a GM, the Screamsheets can also give you ideas about jobs to assign to your players. There are 3 Screamsheets available in the core rulebook, from page 427 to 432, each followed by a short linked mission. In this broader picture, the cyberpunk version of our current day smartphones play a crucial role. If you really want to delve into how agents work in the world of cyberpunk, you can take a look at the core rulebook, and we should do that together, but you can also expand upon that information and take a look at the free DLC all about agents, wherein you can also find some model names for the different agents and agents with different capabilities. In essence, Cyberpunk Red's agents are like today's smartphones, but with a lot of additional functionalities. They can receive and make calls, play audio and video content, take photos, record information in the form of audio, video or text, and even download content, as well as browse the data pool. On top of all of this, it also has a built-in adaptive AI that allows it to act as your own personal agent, remembering you occurrences, automatically ordering finished products, giving fashion advice, and even synchronizing some fashion wear according to the latest trends. Some even have a holographic appearance and a personality of sorts, so much so that it's not uncommon for loners to end up having very personal relationships with their agents, a bit like Joy in Blade Runner 2049. More interestingly for us, however, the agent is basically a pocket access to the data pool, and our media can upload their content on the data pool just by using their agent. That means that they can upload their content, chat with their fans, engage with their audience in every moment they want and in every place they are. And also, do not underestimate the video and audio recording capabilities of an agent for a media. When full video cameras are too expensive or too conspicuous for you, and you don't have the shoulder camera cyberware, agents can be a passable substitute for both of them. And quite frankly, that is probably how most of media started their careers in Cyberpunk Red. MediaCorps are corporations specializing in the creation and dissemination of multimedial content. Basically, they are large conglomerates formed by the merge of TV networks, film companies, record labels, radio stations, books, magazines, and even comic book publishers. The goal? To centralize mass media in the hands of a few. MediaCorp is usually blamed for the drab mass entertainment of the time of the Red, the atrophy of critical thinking, and the collapse of independent productions. Worse still, the rise of MediaCorps allowed politicians and tycoons to control information and manipulate it in the favor with ease. The newer MediaCorps offer both news and entertainment, focusing on CGI or live shows. But in the time of the Red, indie media survived, providing news, gossip, videos, braindance, investigative reports, podcasts, documentaries, popular content, and commentary on the latest events via pop media. And thanks to that data pool, everyone can choose what to watch. In the time of the Red, the main MediaCorp are Network 54 and WNS. You can find detailed information on News 54 on page 274 of the core rulebook, when you can also get to know Michelle Dreyer, the current head of the corporation. There, you can also find some examples of N54 shows. My favorite is the Elflands Online Chronicles, a series about a netrunner called Daedalus, who, in a cyberpunk version of a Sword Art Online, gets trapped in a fantasy world after loading a suspicious braindance chip in a dodgy night market. World News Service was the hegemonic MediaCorp before the data crash, with 24/7 programming on no less than 22 channels, full of subliminal messages and brainwashing. It is based in London, but has many offices all over the world, and deals mainly in news. In the time of the Red, the WNS lost some importance, but in 2077, we know through the game that it's still on the crest of the wave. One of the possible reasons for the few mentions of the WNS in Cyberpunk Red may be hidden in the common opinion that if the M54 is pro-Militech, the WNS would be pro-Arasaka. And considering that Arasaka in the time of the Red was nationalized by Japan and is theoretically absent from Night City after the atomic scandal, a lot of things add up. In entertainment business, the Ziggurat is the one giant in the world of communication in Cyberpunk Red. You can find an extensive discussion of this corporation at page 280 of the core rulebook. Ziggurat is responsible for much of the communication systems of North American cities, but it's based in Night City. Its chief officer is UR. In Night City, the CitiNet is run by Ziggurat. The data pool is operated by Ziggurat. Many of the agent apps are handled by Ziggurat, from ZChat and messaging app to Ask Alex Anything, basically Alexa, and the Ziggurat editing suite, Cyberpunk's version of Adobe. The Garden is the most popular platform for disseminating one's own content, a sort of social media with a profile, here called Garden Patch, for each user with all their creations. And of course, this is all preceded, interspersed, and followed by advertisements. It is clear, therefore, that as a media, you will be having a lot to do with Ziggurat, be it through the use of their editing apps, of their suites, or through the platforms that Ziggurat provides, the social medias onto which you publish your contents. The role ability of the media is credibility. It is used to gather gossip and to convince others that what the media publishes is trustworthy. It also determines the audience the media can inspire to address, the likelihood that people will believe to what the media tells them, and who they can influence and how, the impact they can have with their stories. Credibility works similarly to the rocker's charismatic impact, in that it does not involve a pool of points that you need to allocate into specializations, but is based on a single skill that has two different uses. These two uses of credibility are rumors and published stories and scoops, and they refer to the two phases of the job of a media: gathering information and publish them. Let's start with rumors. The media is a specialist of gossip and hearsay. They know exactly where to find them and how to get them. And when the gossip don't go to the media, then it is the media that goes to the gossip. Rumors, in fact, has a passive and an active use. The passive one represents the rumors that the media collects even without looking for them. At least twice a week, the GM rolls 1d10 plus the media credibility rank and compares this value to the rumors table. If the test is successful, the GM gives the media a clue of the highest rumor level achieved with the test. For example, with an 11, the GM will provide the media with a substantial rumor. But clearly, the media can also actively search for clues and gossip. In this case, the media rolls a test with the usual stat plus skill plus 1d10 formula, using a skill appropriate to the way the media would like to find information. For example, library search, conversation, or interrogation. Take note of how the difficulty value for these tests changes if you compare the passive and active use of the rumors ability. This is not so much because the task itself is more difficult, but because the formula changes. The result you can achieve by adding together your stat value, your skill value, and the roll of a d10 is of course higher than the one you can ever hope to obtain by adding together only your credibility rank and the roll of 1d10. But let's move to the second use of credibility, the one which allows the media to publish what they have discovered. Depending on the media's credibility rank, many publication-related parameters change. Let's look at them one by one. The access sources entry indicates from whom the media can obtain information, for instance through an interview, or where they can get reliable information. These range from city gang leaders and minor politicians with credibility 4 to world leaders and heads of mega corporations at rank 10. With credibility rank 1 or 2, the media can at best hope to spread their stories in a neighborhood, but already at rank 9, they are famous in an entire nation and their content is broadcast on national newscasts. Reliability indicates how the media's content is received by the public, and basically whether people believe it or not. To determine this, you have to roll a d10, and the more credibility the media has, the more likely it is that the public will believe their story. At rank 4, for example, there is a 3 out of 10 chance that the public will believe the media, whereas at rank 7 or 8 we are already talking about 5 out of 10. The maximum is 7 out of 10 at credibility rank 10. This means that you can never be sure that the audience will believe the media's stories. The devil, however, is often in the details. As we have seen, the chances of a media being believed are not particularly high per se. To raise them, the media cannot spend luck, but instead can present some evidences, that is, information that are easily verifiable and easily understandable by the masses. If the media has at least one evidence, then the chances of the media being believed by the masses are 1 higher. If, however, the media has at least 4 evidences, the chances of the media being believed are raised by 2. And these bonuses stack. This means that a media with credibility rank 10 and more than 4 evidences can be sure to be believed by the crowd. This brings us to the last parameter, impact. This entry indicates the extent of the effect caused by the media's story. A media with little credibility can at best hope to scare a few petty criminals into changing their lives or lead to their arrest. But a credible media can get prominent politicians imprisoned and even bring down mega corporations. If you're playing a media, chances are you're looking for useful items for your character. In the following section of this video, I present you a list of useful items and cyberwares for the role of the media. As we have said before, you'll probably need an agent with an agency connection, regardless whether you have a camera or not. An agent is simply too crucial in the world of Cyberpunk to go without it, and as a media it is especially useful to you, because it's your portable access point to the data pool. It even gives you a +2 to your library search skill, which is very good for a media since you'll be doing a lot of net researches anyway. An audio recorder may also come in handy, although your agent can record audios just as well. If quality is an issue though, an audio recorder is the way. If you take this path, then you'll also have to invest in some memory chips to store your recordings. They are quite cheap and you will be able to use them in a variety of ways to store any kind of data, including the ones from the cameras. A video camera can also be replaced by an agent if you have a cutting-edge agent or you don't care about quality. Otherwise, go with a video camera. It's good flavor and will make your work look professional, which is important since you aim at being credible. You can record up to 12 hours of video and audio before a video camera fills a memory chip. If your media deals with confidential intel, then look no farther than Scrambler, Descrambler to cipher your info. As a media, you're also likely to be doing a lot of writing and video editing, so a computer may prove useful if you don't want to use your agent for that. But since you can use your agent, a computer is totally optional for you. A homing tracer is a device that can follow a link tracer up to 1 mile away. It comes with a free button-sized link tracer. Replacement link tracers are 50 eddies, and this is for when you need to follow the sources of potential scoops or find out where a certain person goes after work. There is also the implant version in the CyberWareS section, but this one is cheaper. To find the clues you were looking for, it is always a good idea to bring a light source. A flashlight can do the trick just fine. If it's too expensive, you can go with a glow stick, but remember you can use it only once. Binoculars can help you to discern more with your sight if you cannot afford a magnifying CyberOptics. And smart glasses allow you to install 2 CyberEye options on them. If you have some interesting options you wish to try out, or you just don't want to draw too many attentions. Lastly, a lockpicking set can help you get where you shouldn't be, but you really want to be, so why not? As for cyberwares, the media can make good use out of a lot of them. The list I provide here is focused on your role ability or your role in general. It doesn't take into account the fact that as an edge runner, your media should also be very well competent in fight. There are a lot of cyberwares, of course, that you can use to improve your media's combat skills, but I won't be covering them here because it is impossible for me to foresee what your media is going to fight with. Anyway, you should not overlook combat cyberwares because they are very important, they're quintessential to the survival of your media. As for the role-specific cyberwares, we will be mostly looking at Neuralwares, CyberArms, CyberOptics and CyberAudio systems. Let's start with the Neuralware. This is needed to install some flavorful, although not mandatory, cyberware options, so if you are interested in them, go ahead and start getting a Neuralink. It costs 500 eddies and can be installed in a clinic. The first Neuralware that can be useful to you is the olfactory boost. Sniffing tracks is exactly what a nosy media needs. With an olfactory boost, their proverbial nose for scoops will become more than just a figure of speech. And it's cheap too, although humanity loss is less exciting. The Braindance Recorder is to share your story in first person and make others experience exactly how you felt. Adding emotions to a content can be detrimental or the best thing you can do, depending on the situation. We move on with the chipware socket. This allows you to install chipwares and is needed if you plan on using memory chips. It's not particularly cheap though. Memory chips in themselves are cheap, and if you wish to store your precious data directly in yourself, so as not to depend on an external device, you will need a memory chip. They do not involve any humanity loss, but they do require a chipware socket. Let's take a look now at the CyberOptics. A CyberEye is the foundation cyberware, and it's needed if you wish to use any CyberOptics at all. And as a media, there are a few interesting options for you there. So I recommend you use at least one. The Image Enhance is probably the most thematic one, which lets you add +2 to your perception, lip reading and conceal reveal object skills for checks based on sight. These are skills you are going to be using very often, especially if your media deals with any kind of investigation, so it's a no-brainer for you, even if a bit expensive. Micro-optics can also come in handy, as it lets you magnify 400 times and discover clues otherwise impossible to notice. This is kinda cheap, but you'll need to have it installed in a clinic. As for your hearing, the CyberAudio suite is another foundational cyberware you can make good use of thanks to its many interesting options. Let's start with amplified hearing. A media can always benefit from hearing more or better, and the amplified hearing CyberAudio option does just that, and not so a prohibitive cost of 100 eddies. An audio recorder is for when you want to record audio tracks without having to rely on an external device. Then this is the right way for you to go. This is cheap, it doesn't cost you too much humanity loss, so it's quite good for you. The homing tracer. Sometimes a media needs to trace something or someone, be it a key person for an interview or an object of interest. Using a homing tracer, you can do just that up to 1 mile away, and it's also cheap. With a radio communicator, your media can always communicate with a radio within a 1 mile range. This is useful for when you get into trouble or you just want to be able to communicate instantly. Another staple for you is the voice style analyzer, which grants you a +2 to human perception and interrogation skills, both crucial for a media. In addition, with this cyberware you can activate a lie detector function that beeps whenever it detects a lie. This is a key cyberware for a media, since it's likely the media will be involved in many interrogations. Beware of false positives and negatives though. Let's end with the CyberArm. The CyberArm hasn't got many options for you, but there is at least one you should consider despite the hefty sum needed to install the CyberArm foundational cyberware, which will also grant you a trip to the hospital to have it installed. I'm talking about the shoulder camera, a camera in a pop-up in the user's shoulder that tracks independently of the user and can record video and audio to an onboard memory chip or a linked agent. Unlike normal cameras, these can be concealed, and without a check, it can be drawn or stowed without an action. This is fast, concealable and useful. It's worth every eddy, I promise. So, Chumbas, we have examined the media in every possible aspect, and now it is time for us to draw some conclusions. First of all, I think that the media is a very GM-dependent or campaign-dependent role. If your GM strictly follows a pre-written adventure or scenario, or your campaign is very railroaded, then I have bad news for you, because probably your media is going to end up being a solo without combat senses, meaning a character with no specific combat skill, but with a useless role ability. Let me explain what I mean by that. If your campaign doesn't allow you to make use of your credibility role ability, then your media is just a character without a role ability, with a role ability that isn't gonna see much use. And trust me, it is not easy for a GM to remember to roll for rumors when he's kept busy by all sorts of things. So maybe you should have to remember your GM, or probably you will just end up not playing up your role ability. In this case, you're just playing a character with no special feat. For a GM, it is way easier to forget about rumors than it is to take net architecture into consideration, for example. And as for your publishing of stories and scoops, well, it may easily turn into a fluff-only ability, without any real impact on the world. In this, I think you're on the same boat as the Rocker Boy. Your role reads a reactive campaign world to properly work. If your GM lets you use your role ability and make the game world evolve according to the stories you published, if they use the rumors you get via credibility to give your group possible gig hooks, well, then playing a media is going to be a blast of an experience for you. If your GM tends to be on the other side of the spectrum though, you may end up using your role ability way less than your fellow edge runners. But this is not all about the GM and the campaign, of course. Having a rewarding experience playing a media largely depends on you too. The player of a media character needs to be both creative and proactive in order to make good use of the role ability. You will need to be willing to interact with the campaign world frequently, to have this drive of transforming it with your actions. Sometimes it won't be easy, or just plain clear how you could use your role to contribute to a gig. Imagine your group of edge runners planning a heist in a patrolled warehouse with annexed offices. Well, here it is not immediately clear what you could do as a media to make the plan go smooth. Of course, you can record everything and then publish your story to shake the grounds of the corporate world, but before that, how can you contribute to the party's success on the field? That is not an easy question to answer, and you'll be needing to get creative. You can use your credibility or contacts to spread false news on mass layoff, leading the employees to go on a strike and thus making the complex a bit emptier than it would have otherwise. Or you could investigate the corporation you need to infiltrate, have its offices closed for a scandal, timing the news perfectly so that your group can enter the facility without any guards or employees around. But as I mentioned earlier, you will need to get creative. Of course, you can let your credibility just be a background thing, a flavor option if you will. But in that case, you are playing just as a media-themed character, because in Cyberpunk Red, that role ability of yours is the only thing that sets your character apart from others. So, if you want to play a unique character, you'd better use it, and as often as you can. To have the best possible experience playing a media, you will need the right campaign and the will to be proactive and creative. So, I recommend the media to any creative player that is playing in a non-linear campaign. Anyway, there is nothing wrong with playing just a media-themed character and not use that credibility so often. So, if that idea is exciting to you, I say go ahead and give it a try. Even if your credibility doesn't come into play often, or you just cannot think of creative ways to use it when it's not immediately clear how to do so, you can still have a ton of fun by playing a media-themed character. And as long as you're having true fun, you should not worry about the rest. Given the right GM, campaign, and player's attitude, however, a media can really alter and change the course of a campaign. You can make government fall. You can have mega corporation collapse under the assault of your scoops, and you can alter the underworld of your city drastically.
The hell are you doing? Are you still rolling?
So, what you waiting for, Choom? Press play and start recording your new story.